Parshas Noach Tafshin Pei Vav. There's a very interesting machlokes we know between Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara brings down in Beis Lakish. Was it Noach a tzaddik? Was he not a tzaddik? Would have been in another generation. Would he be a tzaddik like in Avram? And by like Moshe, this whole thing needs a little bit of biur. We need a little bit of understanding. How can you have a machlokes about Noach? The language, as we're going to see in the pasuk, is very clear. The Torah says and states who Noach is. Let me see. And this is how the pasuk starts. Eile toldois Noach. Noach. We know that already. We've learned that many times in the Zohar when a name is repeated twice, especially if it doesn't have a psik, a stop, which is gematria Amalek, in between, we know that we're talking about a tzaddik. The only one that really has the other one is Moshes Rabbeinu, Moshe at the time of the sneh. Though, interestingly, it's missing a vav. So we know that it's talking about the Torah will reveal us who Noach is, but there's still something here. I have a missing vav, and I know what the vav stands for. So why is the vav missing? Going backward, the last pasuk in Parshas Bereshis is V'Noach matzachein be'einei Hashem. Noach found grace to the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he should have said here, Ve'ele, keep on. That why Noach kept, found grace to the eyes of Hashem? Because Noach was a tzaddik, a tamim, haya bedoreisav. Interestingly, it doesn't say ve'ele. It says eile. And the Midrash brings, whenever it comes to, it says eile, it means we cancel what's before. How can you cancel that? That Noach found chen to the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is ish tzaddik tamim. Not only tzaddik, he's a ish, like Moshe Rabbeinu, tzaddik and tamim. Three huge adjectives said about Noach. But there could be a misunderstanding because it says afterward, haya bedoreisav, in his generations. And could be that Rabbi Yochanan learns that only in his generation was he considered a tzaddik because everyone was a Rasha. So above them he was towering. But this is impossible to say. We're going to see more in depth later, but this is impossible to explain this. You want to tell me the way the Midrash describes that generation, how they used to behave, and their morals, or the lack of morals, and the lack of respect for anything, they used to copulate like animals in the street. And Noach was, when it says he was a tzaddik, it says, we know tzaddik yesod olam, like the Zohar in Parsha, in Noach says, that the whole world stands on him. He's a tzaddik, mean he kept the bris. But you could say, you know what? He had to fight. That's why the word tamim comes after. No, he never crossed his mind to ever try to behave like these animals. Never crossed his mind. He was tamim. And after, it's confirmed in the pasuk. Es ha-Eloikim. Where is the name Eloikim? It's in the Malchus. Hishalech Noach. Because Noach was a tzaddik yesod olam and he kept the yesod, he kept alive the malchus. You want to tell me when there's a typhoon of tumor going on around him and the man stands that he's not a tzaddik? In contrary, remove that typhoon, for sure he's going to stand. So for sure in the door of Avraham, he'll be a greater tzaddik. For sure in the door of Moshe, he'll be even a greater tzaddik. No question about it. Rabbi Yochanan, I don't understand you. I understand Resh Lakish. That says that even if he was in another generation, he would be a tzaddik. But Rabbi Yochanan, I don't understand. Rashi says, Ele toldois. What are the toldois of a tzaddik? It's his deeds. But then the next pasuk is not going to talk about the deeds of Noach. It's going to talk about the children of Noach. Understandable that they were tzaddikim also at that point. But where are the deeds? Rashi didn't speak out of in a vacuum, telling me that we're talking the toldos of a tzaddik are his deeds, but you don't mention the deeds of Noach. You're only mentioning the natural children of Noach. Vatishaches haaretz lifnei ha'elokim. And the land was, tishaches is really destroyed. But we understand it doesn't mean physically destroyed. It means spiritually destroyed. Lifnei ha'elokim. These two words we could have done without them in the Parsha. Vatishaches haaretz, the earth was destroyed. Vatimale haaretz chamas, because they were theft. Period. What's lifnei ha'elokim? Is there something that's not before God? Is there something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't see? Meloi chalares kevodo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees everything. So what do you come and point out that it's lifnei ha'elokim? I mean, we can go on and go on and go on in this Parsha and in this few psukim and ask 10 more questions. But I think we're getting an idea that the Torah is here, or the words are here to hint us more than to give us an explanation. The simple meaning of the words is not explaining the story behind it. But we're going to see that there's a whole world behind those words. And those words are going to point to it. Let's start the share now. I didn't have to. I just came back from Iriv. So yeah, I apologize. I'm going to have to copy as I'm going along. I'm going to start with the Megale Amukes here. Okay. That when Adam HaRishon did the chet, it was not just eating a fruit. He only had one sivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he crossed it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, Me'etz hagan toichal. From all the other trees you can eat, but this one don't eat from. What did he do? He ate from. Interesting, right? That we always call the chet etz hadas on Adam HaRishon, when really who started it? Chava. Well, why don't we call it on Chava? But this is another thing. But when Adam HaRishon ate from it, he did a pgam in the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, the name of Hashem, which is all the time we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloikeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our God, Hashem Echad. We want all the letters to be in symbios. We want them to be connected. And what Adam HaRishon did, just the opposite of Shema Yisrael. He separated automatically. In between the letters came the tumah. Now all of a sudden you have channels between the letters, and this created these 4 generations of barbarians without morals that behaved like animals. We have the Enosh with the Avodah Zarah, the Mabul with the moralities, no morality. Then we had Dora Flaga, who thought that they could go after HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then we have the Dor Sodom, which encompassed all the 4 of them, the other 3. That's the 4 generations. These 4 generations are all going to be chote in a terrible manner. And I'm going to take you along with them, as we know quite a bit of the story already, so it makes it easier to go deep today on this subject. So, and these are the generations that are going to have to go, like Daria Kodesh says in Bereshit, in the Torah, that they were huge neshamas, huge, and they were supposed to become the Bnei Israel. But because Adam HaRishon was chote, and because he separated the Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, automatically they fell in the darkness. I'm going to explain. So they went through Gilgulim in order to repair themselves because they were high neshamas, high nitzoitzos, and everything. They ended up into, these are the neshamas that ended up into the tzoin of Lavan, and that the purpose of Yaakov going to Haran and to free the tzoin Lavan, the flock of Lavan, bring it back, because in them was the Gilgul of the neshamas of these 4 generations. And there are the tzoin, the flock that he took down to Mitzrayim. Afterward, the Gilgul, they came back into humans. They were misgalgal into the children and grandchildren of Yaakov, not the children, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Yaakov Avinu. And from there on, we'll start the Shirbud Mitzrayim in order to finalize the completion of the cleansing of the neshamas of these 4 generations. Look how much work, look how much pgam Adam HaRishon generated because of one chet. But we're not here to talk about Adam HaRishon. We're here to talk about Noach. So why bringing all this? The Pardes Rimonim, the Ramak, explains we're going to have in this year the end and the beginning. We need to have them in order to be able to remain in balance and understand. If I just go through, plow through, if you don't know, if I don't have a net under it, you're going to fall through the cracks. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, you all know it was in Olam HaYetzira, the world of the creation, which is above ours. And when he sinned, he fell into our world. This is what we call for those who know, the Shvira of the Kelim. Anyway, so Adam HaRishon created that space. That's what the Ramak goes back on. And a lot of the tumah got involved. So some tumah with a Kedusha, some Kedusha with a tumah. So there was no anymore any longer, two kinds of powers, the Kedusha and the Tuma, everything got mixed up. Now we have to separate everything. And the purpose of these, the Shibud of Mitzrayim, which is the end. So we are the beginning Bereshis, till Pashas Beshalach, it's really the cleansing of these neshamas that's going to happen Parsha after Parsha. And we're going to go through a little bit with the Mefarshim here today and explain, what's going on in the... So at the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the human with a cloth of light. And once the Tumah got involved, he became, instead of Kosnois Oir with the Aleph, he became Kosnois Oir with the Ayin, which Ayin refers also, the Ramak says, to 70 nations. In other words, the fact that Bnei Israel had to live in amongst 70 nations, I said generation, sorry, 70 nations, it's because of that Chetu. And Yaakov Avinu was the one who's going to lead us to the first Shibud. Now look in the pasuk here. Yaakov Avinu dreams. Says the Megale Amukos, on the ladder of Yaakov Avinu, there was 4 rungs. 1, 2, 3, 4. There was no more. Hey stands for Haflada. Samech stands for Zdoim. Mutzav, Mem, Mabu. Aleph, Der Enosh. Yaakov Avinu understood at that point his mission. He was given in that dream. Veroisha Magia Shamayma, you know the stories with the Midrashim with the Malachim. But what was the side of that mission? That mission was that these neshamas that's supposed to come to you and be your great children and great grandchildren and great grandchildren are coming from here, Yaakov Avinu, and you will have to lead them to the cleansing in Mitzrayim. And we'll see why. And Yaakov Avinu understood, and he was on his way to Haran. Remember? Haran equals 258. Equals 3 times Elohim. The dinim. Yaakov wanted to know, why am I being sent there? Hashem told him. Because there you're going to find the neshamas, these holy neshamas, and these neshamas are all in Gilgul right now in Behemoth Ksheres. So it means they already went through some process of Gilgulim, and now it's the time to take them out from the hands of Lavan that didn't want to free them, because Lavan knew they were Gilgulim there. He knew they would become Bnei Israel. And he knew that if they come out, they would lead the world. So therefore, he wanted to stop this. And that's why in Mitzrayim we say, the Pardes Rimonim say, now go back to the Ramak, some of the children were thrown in water. Keneged Mabul. Those generation were the children, the neshamas that were thrown back in the lake. As the Ari HaKadosh says, those who could not get repaired had to die that way. Then you had some, the father couldn't complete the number of bricks to do every day, and he was walled in by the Mitzrayim into the wall. That was from Der HaFlaga. The neshama could not be cleansed in a way to be roi for the Bnei Israel. He went back to the Chet. Boom. In the world, he had to die. And thereafter, maybe it doesn't say in Dari, so I can't say it on my own. It doesn't say in the Ramak. If he came back, those neshamas came back or not, I do not know. Through the punishment of these neshamas, we understand that what the Ramak and the Megale Amukes are telling us here, there's a foundation of the Bnei Israel. So we have in the Mabul some secrets, soidos of the Yetzirah, of how on the world, because obviously Noach was not Pashut. Obviously, the Dora Mabul, if the Torah recounts the deeds, it means there's something to learn and something extremely deep to learn. For example, the Torah says you had to make the Teva 300 amas. It had to be, that's the length. The width had to be 50 amas. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu cared if it was 320 or 300. Yes, 300. Width 50. Height 30. Can you add those numbers? Why don't we add the numbers together? We had 300 length plus 50 width plus 30 height equals 380. Now from this, I can tell you what was the Pgam and what was the punishment. What was the Chet and what was the punishment? Because if I take this, Yud times Aleph, you'll understand in a second. Hey times Dalet. Vav, times Nun. Hey times Yud. You had Yud K Vav K, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. You multiply them like this, equal 380. Someone who separates the Yud Es HaEloikim is Halech Noach. Noach was a tzaddik, he kept the Yesod, so because of this, he was always going along with the Shechina. The role of a Jew is to keep these two names together, and they equal 380. Oh, you don't do it. No problem. Equals Mitzrayim. And you're going to tell me now, oh, there's no more Mitzrayim. It's okay. Then I'll punctuate it differently. Oh. Mitzarim. You in the Meitzar. Min ha-Meitzar karasika. When David HaMelech says when he was in one Meitzar, he called upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's so hard to live there. One tunnel. This person is in Mitzarim. Wherever he turns, wherever he puts his hand, nothing goes. And he tries different things. And he tries the skula, Meshane Malke, Meshane Mazel. But it's not Meshane. Why? Because you have to go to the root. You've done something that separated the Yud Ke Vav Ke from the Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. And automatically the din is Mitzarim. You can change. For you, the skula is not going to work. He has to first do tshuva and everything, and the Mitzarim, he can even stay in the same place, it's going to stop. And how do we call the Shibud of Mitzrayim, we call it Kor HaBarzel, right? Which equals to 470. Yehi Oyer, Vayehi Oyer. What does the Midrash says? Ele toldois Noach. The moon, the Me'oiros were not Meshamshim. They were not appearing. All that generation had no light. Why? They turn off the light with their ma'asim. Yehi Oyer, Vayehi Oyer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now they touch. That's why they went. B'mida, can they get mida? You turn off the lights of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you go into the Kura Barzel. That's the reason, and that's enough, for as an introduction, for Mitzrayim, for these neshamis. Let's move on a little bit. Just going to copy to bring you what I'm on here. I need this. What I'm here, I can tell you. The Gemara in Bava Basra here says that Avraham Avinu had a gem on his neck that was shining like the sun. And when he was niftar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took it and put it in the sun. And everyone that was looking at it was healed. Any sick person. Now, this pasuk comes from Bris Beis HaBesarim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him through that, with that stone, the vision that started showing him that the first Ema stands for Enosh. Sorry, I wrote with the Yud. It's Der Enosh. Chashecha, because there were no Me'oiros, you see. Sorry, I didn't want to say Chashecha. It's Mabu. Gdoila is the one that wanted to build the big building, the big tower to fight its Haflaga. And Neufeles, is done. That at the end, that even though Avram Avinu will daven for them, they will fall down and they will crawl under. That's Neufeles. And what's the words olav? Olav means it's on you, Avram Avinu, to start working on the tikkun of these people. In other words, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are going to share the burden to correct these neshamas, these 4 daughters. And we're going to see how it's medugdak here. Sorry, I'm going to have to copy another one here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Adam and Chava the first mitzvah, which we all know in the Torah, the first mitzvah is Peru Urvu. Peru Urvu milu es haaretz, not only multiplied, but fill earth, v'chipshua, and conquer her. What do you mean conquer her? There's a mitzvah to conquer the land. So Bnei Yisrael should be going in war nonstop and conquer? Is that the type of conquering that the Pasuk says? It's the first mitzvah. I would like to understand. I know what happened to Adam HaRishon when he didn't do the first mitzvah. So we want to understand that mitzvah. What is that mitzvah to fill earth? And what is that mitzvah to conquer? If we take the part of the mitzvah that we don't understand, okay, and we're just going to go what it has behind its numbers, equals 1107. Equals exactly this. What's the connection? That's more of the question. What's the connection? The connection is every time, like the Zohar says, like the Ari brings it down, and so forth. Whenever we say haaretz, we are not talking about the land down below. We are talking about the Malchus. We're talking about the Shekhinah. In order to conquer the Shekhinah by just the mitzvah of having children, it's already because every time a neshama is gone from the Shekhinah can get more shefach, has more room to get more shefach. You'll understand a little bit later in a way that it's going to blow your mind exactly what it means. If I remember, if someone wants to tell me to remind me when I'm going to talk about the Samech, I will explain this. And I'm going to go deeper to explain you this. And it's something I didn't explain in any of the shiurim, not the one on Shabbos, not the one. We all know that we have 22 letters. I've explained in the shiurim at length what's the origin, because the 22 letters were created, are a creation. The Midrash said they were created 2,000 years before the creation of the world. So if they're creation, what material was used in order to create them? So we have Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, Kel Rachum Bechanonei Rechapayim V'Rav Chesed Be'emes, that was said by Moshe after the ego, and the Tes Midos Harachamim, that was said after the Meraglim. So there are a total of 22 Midos Harachamim, which every Midah, a letter was created. This is the origin of the 22 letters of the alphabet. That's how far we've learned even on Shabbos. But if I want to know the origin of the Midas Harachamim, okay, I want to push it. I want to know, because we have to have an understanding how the word is based. Because now you know that every time you pronounce a word of tefillah, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu asking us to daven? Because he wants us to spew letters. Because every time we come out with the letters through our mouths, we're pressing a button up there that presses one of the Midas Harachamim. That's why we have to say them and pronounce them fully. That's why we have to hear them. Because if you speak and you can't hear, you don't speak really. You're mumbling, you're not doing anything. And therefore, the Midas Harachamim wake up when a person says the letters aloud, especially in Kriya Shema, because then the letters get into combinations and form the 72 names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Huge power. only by saying letters. We don't know what we're doing, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. All he's asking from us is to say those letters. That's all he's asking from us. But now, they're so important, these Midas Arachmim, that created the 22 letters of the alphabet, that I need to know what's the source. How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create this Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim? You know that before we say Vayaver Hashem al panav vayikra, we say Hashem, Hashem, right? And I always told you there are three of them. Why don't we say the third? Because it's not obvious, it's hidden. It's in the back of the head, in the dalet of the tefillin. So we have Hashem, Hashem. Above Kel, we have an Hashem on the side of the face, another one here, and one in the back. Now, if we take the Yud Ke Vav Ke in Atbash, meaning I replace the Aleph with a Taf, I invert the alphabet, you have a word coming called the Matzpatz. It's a very big Shem Kodesh. Any transformation of the Yud Ke Vav Ke will become extremely holy. So this is extremely holy. From these three matzpas came, so now if you have another one matzpats and another one matzpats, you have 12 Midas Arachmim plus the original Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is the original name. This is what created the Yud Gimel Midas Arachmim. But interestingly, if I want to see what in that Shem, the same way we do Yud Ke Vav Ke, Ab, Sag, Ma, Ben, different feelings. We're going to do here Mem, Tzaddik, Pei, no, Pei Tzaddik, Mem Tzaddik, Pei Tzaddik. So since I have three, I'm going to multiply it by 3. Equals 1,107. The tool, when someone listens to the mitzvah, we don't understand the depth that each mitzvah has. But when we do the pru urvu umil es haaretz, automatically HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered us his names in order to conquer the Malchus and be always with the Malchus. But these people have not done this because Adam Arishon created a gap, a separation between the letters. And what we got instead, Eima, Chashecha, Gedoyla, Neufeles, and who has to do the whole work? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So where is Noach in all this? Coming to him. But we would not understand the depth of everything. So now you see, Pru Urvu is on the side of the Kedusha. Immorality is on the side of the Tumah. So now you understand, Ema Chashecha against now Umilu Esar the Kipshu, instead of conquering the Malchus, the Shechina, these people went all the way down. Moshes Rabbeinu also hinted, because the Ari HaKadosh says that the neshama of Moshes Rabbeinu was in Gilgul with Noach. That we're going to start. And that's why it says, Hoitzesi eschem mitacha sivlois Mitzrayim. I took you out from the suffering of Mitzrayim. You take the first letter, hey, haflaga, and so forth. You can trust me. So we have then Aleph Enosh, Eschem, Mitachas Mem Mabur, Samech Sivlois. And Yaakov Avinu had the hardest, the most difficult task, because he had to correct the breeze, the two generation that were poigem the most is Enosh and Haflaga. Together equals 480 equal Sitra Achra. Jacob Avinu had to face the Sitra Achra more than his father and his grandfather. They didn't have to go after it. Now you're going to understand after that, a lot of things are going to be explained to you. You'll understand why did he go with the sorrow shall Esau and why this and why that. A lot of things will be explained. But I need to move on. I'm not here to speak about the unveils, even though it's very interesting. In Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, he explains that after Avram came, so before Avram, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to separate the nations into 70 nations. But once the light of Avram came, now Bnei Israel can be protected and they can be amongst the 70 nations. That's why he told the Malachim, go and we're going to do a goyrol, and each one will be assigned a nation. So the 70 ministers that run HaKadosh Baruch Hu there came, and finally HaKadosh Baruch Hu got Bnei Israel, and he was very happy. Ki chelek Hashem amo Yaakov chevel nachlasei. You don't mind? I'm going to copy it. Ki chelek Hashem amo Yaakov chevel nachlasei. I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go to it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pointed only to Yaakov, right? We didn't mention the other others. This equals 760. This equals to Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, the Yud Kevav King full, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. Yaakov Avinu will keep like Noach, the Shem Hashem in a different way, in full, completely connected. And with this, he will be mevatel both Nachash, Nachash. That's the mission of Yaakov Avinu. That's why he suffered tremendously during his life. I'll spare you Yitzchak because I see the time flying. Remember that pasuk? Vatishaches haaretz lifnei ha'elokim. Now we're coming to Noach. Let's see what's... Okay, we understand the future generations have a responsibility in order to be mesaken those 4 generations because they became Bnei Israel. But Noach was a tzaddik also. So what was his responsibility? He lived it. So how come we don't demand from Noach? You'd ask me, what could he do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do the teva for 120 years, and at the same time, tell off the people and ask them to change their ways. Nah. Here, there's a huge side. Let me explain you what the Zohar says first, because the Zohar asked that question. What it means, lifnei ha'elokim. Can you do something that's not before God, that God doesn't see? HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees, is everywhere. Melo yichol haaretz kevoidod. So how can you tell me that it has to be lifnei Elokim means there's a way to do it sheloi lifnei Elokim. It's impossible. Explains the Zohar. At the beginning, they had a little bit of busha, and they were doing the shmutz in hidden. They were hiding. But as they went along, they started doing it more and more openly until it was completely in the open. There was no anymore busha. Now you're thinking, this is what a tzaddik like Noach is exposed to. And he's not even having a machshava in his head to be choite. Nothing. He remained a tzaddik tamim. And you, Rabbi Yochanan, are telling me that he would be in another generation, he would be less of a tzaddik? If he could withstand all the temptation that was in his generation, and not even having let his mind have the slightest machshava, honestly, you want to tell me that he would be in a different generation, he will be choite? It's impossible. Look at something. We're going to go, I know I'm going to go deeper than usual in this year, but this Parsha, if you really want to understand something, you have to go down to the basement. So we have, let me copy the be shorter. We have tzaddik tamim. The two adjectives, yeah. I'm going to start looking at this word etymologically. Tamim, I know I have a taf, and basically I have mine, right? I have a mem in full, and the truth is I have a yud. Now you will understand a little bit. This is the road to understand how water was created. Water is not something natural. Hashem put it naturally in the teva, but Hashem created it with letters. If you take the letters, it's mem and yud. Now, how you create water? You take that yud, you put it in the middle. And so, what is tamim? We know that the taf is a shechina. It's the last letter, it's the last midah. I'm getting to it. Equals 490. Equals, 7 times Yesod. Noach, in his 7 midas, completely Kaddish. The Yesod was irreproachable. Tzaddik equals 204. Equals 6 times the Shem. Some of you know it. In other words, if you take the name Kehye, the letters that come after Aleph is base, the letter that comes after Hey is Vav, the letter that comes after Chaf is, after Yud is Chaf, and the letter that comes after Hey, Kehye, and it's a Shem Kodesh. This Shem is used as a conduit between the Binna and the Malchus to pass the Shefa. Okay, now you understand. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, it's a building up there. So we see in here that Noach, even though the Vav is very important, even though the Yesod is very important, but here, that midah of tzaddik is incomplete. He only has 6. He doesn't have 7. What would be if I take 7 times the Shem Besvav Chavav? This is a tremendous shame to be mevatel the dinim. Equals 238. Sorry, I wrote 238 equals Roche equals the Malchus. Now, you want to understand what the pasuk says, because I'm here, the pasuk, so you're going to have a full image. Why Yaakov loved Rachel? Because Yaakov equals 182 equals 7 times Yud Ke Vav Ke. Rachel equals 238 equals 7 times the Shem coming from the Binna, Besvav Chavav. So she's completed already. So he understood that this was a match. Now you put 34 and 26. How much equals? 60. Samach. Yaakov Avinu wanted to be there. The perfect shidduch. But now let's go back to our Noach. So we have, he's missing why? Because, like Chazal say, he didn't daven on his generation. Moshes Rabbeinu, that's why Moshes Rabbeinu said, where should I write after this? Mechenina, after Mechenina, Misifrecha asher kosafta, in his tefillah. Says the Megale Amukos Mechenina, Mecheni equals Mei Noach. Why do we call Mei Noach the Mabul, like if it's because of Noach? Because he didn't daven for his generation, he could have been mevatel the din. And Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came back in his second Gilgul, as Moshe, he says, I know why this Mei Noach happened, because I didn't daven. So this is the lack. When you daven, now we're going back to this, at this pasuk, Peruravu umilu es haaretz v'chifshuha. How do you conquer the malchus? When you daven. Noach, the only thing, Noach was a superhero, a super tzaddik. But one thing he didn't do. He didn't daven. He could have had Rachel in full. Instead, he has 6 times, which is great for the Yesod. He was a tremendous tzaddik. But for his generation, like the Gemara says, what is the difference between a tzaddik gamor and tzaddik she'enoi gamor? A tzaddik gamor is a tzaddik that Klape Shema is a tzaddik, but toward others he's also held. A tzaddik she'enoi gamor, an incomplete tzaddik, is a tzaddik that's kuloi to everybody, but it's only Lashamayim that he is incomplete. It has to be above and down below. That's why we have the Mishnah saying, Elu dvarim she'adam echad perasem ba'olam hazeh ken tovah ve'elu kibud avayim, not this one. Gemilus chasadim kulam. I can remember the Torah because I come out of the shir when I say that now. Torah equals Gemilus chasadim. Torah equals 611. Gemilus chasadim equals 611. The completion of a person is being spiritual, but being also physical. Being also in this world and helping this world. And try to do chesed, a tremendous chesed, not just a little bit say, oh, I helped, I'm being yotzei. No, go out of yourself. When you feel your neshama in the mouth, when you help, now you know that you've been doing some chesed. So now let's keep on from where we at. Noach could have completed the samach. You all know the samach is a closed letter, and the mem is a closed letter. And these two letters, Chazal say, the Midrash says, the Gemara brings it down, that they were holding in the luchas in miracle because they have no side to be attached. So they were hanging in the air in their place. Every word here of Chazal holds tremendous serious. What does it remind you? A samach. A samach reminds you a full moon. What is a full moon? A full moon, I don't know. It's when we were ordered to do Pesach and Sukkot, the Tesva. And also there's something else, Tu B'Av. And the full moon is also the dance that these girls were doing in the orchards on Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. And therefore, Chazal say there were no joyful day like Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. Wow. More than going out of Mitzrayim because girls are dancing in a circle. I mean, we became nourished. I mean, there's a certain level, we can swallow things, but that's pretty hard to swallow. Girls are dancing in a circle and they had to be dancing in circle. What if they dance in a square? No, they were not dancing in a square. They had to dance in a circle. All right, so let's go down to it. We all know that if I would cut, let me show you something. I don't know if I should, but the two letters I said that we're holding by miracle on the luchas are the endemem and the samach, because they have no edge to be attached to the stones. Now, if I would cut here, right here, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't show. If you cut the mem and open it, it would be base vav. If you cut the samach, it would become chav vav. Oh, interesting. It becomes that Shem, right? And they are in the malchus. You see how the conduit is going all the way into the malchus. Bes vav, chav vav, the letters which is after the name Keye. You take each letter, you go forward. And what happens when you multiply them? It's okay. It's enough for today on this. So now Shlomo HaMelech tells us in Shir HaShirim, Hine mitosoi sheli Shloimoi, Shishim giborim saviv la migibore Yisrael. I need to copy it. Sorry. Where is it? Okay. Here's the pasuk. Okay. Hine mitasoi sheli shloim. This is his bed that's of Shloimo. Hine mitas Shloimo. What do you mean? Mitasoi sheli Shloimo. But shishim, 60. 60 is the number of letters also in the Birkas Kohanim. They were giborim around his bed. Why? Because he was scared at night. After the Maaseh with Ashmedai, he was scared. Shlomo HaMelech was scared. That'll be the day. And why it had to be around his bed? There's a side. Take here. You just start looking at the words here because it doesn't make much sense. I'm going to tell you this equals 455 equals, you know the rest, Kasa, Kamag, Kana. You know the rest on here. So you know right away. Says the Midrash Rabbah, Shira Shirim Rabbah, Sheli Shloimoi, Shel HaMelech Shehashalom Sheloi. The whole time we say the name Shloimoi in Shira Shirim, we refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaMelech Shehashalom Sheloi. That's what's Shloimoi. That's why Birkas Kohanim ends at the end with Shalom. The Mishnah says in Uktzin, Loi Matzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Loi Matzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kli Machzik Bracha LeYisrael, Ela HaShalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not find a proper Kli to contain the bracha. What is ha-bracha? Is the ralab, ab, sag, ma, ben, the four names of the chachma, which bring tremendous shefa. But you can send as much oil to a person if he has holes. If you have a kli and you're thirsty, you want to drink, but it has no bottom. It doesn't matter if you go to the well and you fill it up 10 times. You're never going to bring up water. It has no bottom, your kli. So what can contain the bracha? Only the shalom. That's why the last word of the Birkas Kohanim is shalom, mean the whole bracha went into the kli, which is the malchus, and it's going to, like a shower, is going to give it to the Bnei Israel. I'm going to try to give you a side here for you to understand a little bit better and in depth. I'm giving you a taste of the shir of Shabbos, but Shabbos is going to go far deeper. I promise to give a shir on how the Keser was formed, because everything has an origin. And at the end, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, his light. It's always him. The rest, it's only images. It's only a levush. So, Shalom, we know, equals 370. Now you put Shalom plus, you multiply Yud K by Vav K. You take the Yud K, and I'll show it to you. Okay, we have Shalom equals 376. On the Yud K Vav K, you have to multiply the Yud K by the Vav K, because we know there's no oir unless you clash. There's a betisha. This equals 165. You add both these numbers together, you're getting a number 541 equals Yisrael. You want to become a Ben Yisrael. You want to be receiving the oil. You want to be under the bracha. Koi sevarchu as Bnei Yisrael. The Birkas Kohanim can only go to Bnei Yisrael. They're not going to go to Bnei Esau or Erev Rav or someone who has a foul mouth or anything like this. It's only going to go to Bnei Yisrael. Who is the Bnei Yisrael? Someone who has the midah of Shalom, and he can contain the oil now of Yud K times Vav K. That's what the Ben Yisrael is. And that tells me the tremendous work that Noach did, because he was misaken, the letter Samech and the letter Mem. These are the two hanging letters, the two letters that are, completely closed. The Shefa is not coming out. And this is what the Torah tells us in Tamim. Because Tamim, as I mentioned before, it's a combination of two words, here and Mem. In other words, Taf Yud equals 410 equals Kodesh. Who's Kodesh? The Chachma. What did Noach do? It says in the Pasuk, the Midrash asks, because it says in the Pasuk, when Noach was born, how did Lamech, his father, knew that he's going to be a different human? At that time, the people had a flap between the fingers like a duck feet, Noach was the first one who was born with 5 independent fingers. How did Lamech know? So, because, says the Zohar, when Adam HaRishon received the klal of earth, that it's going to grow only koitzim, how do you say koitzim in English? Spikes.
Thorns.
Weeds. Thorns, thank you. Thorns and weeds. And they had to work the hand. They were working, they were plowing the fields with their hands. So Noach came and did a chesed with them. He invented the macharisha, the plower. He invented the shovel. He invented the fork. He invented everything. Why? Because when Noach, Adam asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, till when will last the curse of earth? He told him it will last until someone will be born like you, Mahul. And Noach was the first human to be born Mahul after Adam HaRishon. And that's how Lamech knew that the klal of earth, and not only it stopped, the Midrash Tanchuma brings that because Noach was such a tzaddik and he helped so much, he removed completely the klal of earth. The bread would not rot. When they plowed for 1 year, the next time they needed to plow again was 41, the 41st year after. It would remain on the wheat, was like huge, and would remain on the stalks and not rot and not fall, and no bugs would come and eat it. Fruits would remain on the trees. Whenever you needed it, you didn't have to have a refrigerator. They would remain fresh on the tree and right away. And that's the reason, because the earth went to the other side, to the other extreme, they had nothing to do for 40 years. So what were they doing? That's why Vehineni mashchisam es haaretz. He should have said biglal haaretz. I destroyed them. No, es haaretz. The culprit is the haaretz. It's the malchus. He gave too much abundance. Why too much abundance? Because Noach with its tzidkos was able to bring all the shefa from the chachma through the Binna, through Kuchaberichu, to the Malchus, to the people. That was the koyach of Noach, tzaddik, tamim. But when he saw, that's the time of Rabbi Yochanan, I'm closing the circle here, the Samech, when he saw that the people of his generation were misusing this abundance, he should have died. He should have davened that this abundance won't be given to them to be machshil them, in contrary to help them. But he didn't daven. And Rabbi Yochanan holds someone who doesn't daven at the end of the day for the people of his generation, it's tzaddik she'eino ibam. The Shlakish says he done enough to help them with the macharisha, with the plow, and with all the tools that he invented. It was enough, and therefore he was a tzaddik. At the end of the day, we'll never come up out of this, because no matter how deep we're gonna go, we're gonna see that there's still a side of Rabbi Yochanan and there's the side of Reish Lakish. That's the way the Torah wanted it. But that's the side here of Noach reaching almost the level of Yaakov Avinu. But he stopped short when he didn't daven to have 7 times, to have Rachel withstanding. It's not Rachel the problem. It's not the Malchus the problem that giving abundance. No, the people could have taken this abundance and use it and go learn Torah in Shem be'ever, but they did not do that. And on this, he needed a tefillah bedafka. And that's understandable. This tells you the koyach tefillah, and you understand the letters. When we say the tefillah, we're saying the automatically we awakening the Yud Gimel Midas Derachmim, the 22 Midas Derachmim on the person. We creating a samech around, like the Malchus created by the Yud Ke Vav Ke, and so forth. And the Shefa can come, and a person can have Shalom Menucha inside him and be collecting all this bracha. Just be quiet. Amen. I wanted to tell you a Sefer Hatmuna, keep on going, but it's very late. All right. Have a good night, everyone. B'ez Hashem, we'll see you on Shabbos.